We stand at the beginning of Holy Week, at a time of pandemic, of infection and of global crisis. We're probably not ready for this week. We're preoccupied with so many concerns, our heads filled with anxiety, fear and apprehension. Of course, this is the best place from which to start the journey. The events of Holy Week are not nice. They're full of anxiety and uncertainty, and Jesus carries them all in the weight of his cross. So we walk, perhaps not actually, but spiritually. We walk the way of the cross, which for 2,000 years have helped Christians to transform our own pains, our own sorrows, by walking with Jesus as he carries his cross. Jesus came out wearing a crown of thorns and a purple robe. Pilate asked him, "Whom shall I pardon? Shall it be Barabbas or Jesus?" And he asked the mob, "Whom do you call your king, the King of the Jews? Who will you have me release for you, the King of the Jews or Barabbas?" They cried, "Barabbas." "And this Jesus?" "Crucify him," they said. "We adore you, O Christ, and we bless you, because by your holy cross you have redeemed the world." The religious leaders sought the death penalty for Jesus. He was more than they could cope with, and the death penalty was not theirs to carry out, so they had to go higher, to the Roman authorities. Pilate was a failed governor, and yet he knew the power of the mob. He never understood Jews or the temple. They were a strange people, a dangerous people. The zealot terrorists who lived up and down the coast of the Sea of Galilee burned Roman garrisons and murdered Roman soldiers by the hundreds. How did he know that Jesus was not one of these terrorists? Pilate was in a difficult position. Pilate was a politician living in a world of power and the politics of power. Who should be allowed to live and who to die? In this story, Pilate represents earthly power at its most cruel. He is power that will seek to preserve itself by doing anything, however unjust, to maintain its power. In Jesus, love in human form faces down power in human form, and Jesus does it silently. Most of us have power. Most of us have to make judgments, and we will use whatever we have in our armory in order to do so. We may not be a despot or a dictator, but most of us have some kind of power over others. It can be the power of the bully, the power of money, when to give, when to withhold, the power to perpetrate prejudice and privilege. Power isn't restricted to dictators and rulers and Roman consuls. Power is something that belongs to all of us. And we have to be aware when we misuse it in order to control others. And control we can. We can withhold love and friendship, bear grudges, refuse to forgive, lie to save ourselves at the expense of our friends. All of these things place burdens on others, the cost of which we rarely understand, or if we do, we ignore it. And Jesus takes up the cross with all of those costs. Jesus takes up the consequences of facing down power and refuses to take power for himself. Silently, he picks up the cost and walks. He walks with the weight of the world on his shoulders. He walks with all abuse of power at his neck for the condemnation that it deals out, for the cruelty that it meets, for the death that it causes. He picks up his cross, the symbol of so many wounds, so much pain, so many injustices, cruelties, all that have been and those yet to come, and he walks. He walks with the power of pain, the pain of being human, the price of living in a sinful world, the price of being judged, the price of being powerless, the price of oppression. Jesus is the victim, like many of the small people that he championed, and the now powerless, the unemployed, those on ventilators, those nursing in hospital wards without proper protective clothing against a deadly virus, those in countries who will endure this pandemic without a healthcare system, the partner at home at the end of the fist of frustration and anger in domestic violence, the powerlessness of those who don't know what the future will be, suddenly locked up in a tower block with no garden and no open space. Suddenly a virus we cannot control has power over us, and we are powerless. Jesus is condemned to death by all ruthless power, and he carries it. He carried it then, and he carries it now. We adore you, O Christ, and we bless you, because by carrying your cross, you show us how to carry ours.